counting. I actually have a very funny story.
Oh?
I went to Las Vegas over the week after my birthday. I went to Las Vegas for a few days. A really horrible flight situation that I'm not going to get into. But I went to the Pinball Hall of Fame. Big old warehouse-style building that has pinball from wall to wall, man. It's a lot of coin ops, not just pinball. There's also, like, a lot of, like, really, really, like, vintage, retro cabinets and, like, just automaton-style things.
Sure.
Really great stuff. But I did play pinball, and I played the Lord of the Rings pinball. And not, like, Lord of the Rings, Two Towers, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. No, it's just Lord of the Rings pinball. It's all the movies. All wrapped up into one really, really busy pinball machine. And I kind of had this realization about, like, franchises in pinball and, like, how pinball is, like, one of those things that it seems like if a franchise, like, hits a certain threshold, you're going to get a pinball machine, you know? I'm sure there's a Breaking Bad pinball out there. I don't know what that would look like, but I imagine that exists. But as far as the Lord of the Rings pinball game goes, there's a really weird, like, disconnect when it comes to pinball, you know? Because, like, we all have a good understanding of what Lord of the Rings is by now, you know? It's like a high fantasy story about, like, not necessarily powerful characters, but who are stout of heart, going on a journey that, you know, is kind of the impetus of the journey itself. And so it kind of made me flinch emotionally when I heard Galadriel shout out Ring Frenzy and then start counting down from 10, pressuring me to perform particular maneuvers on this pinball cabinet. And it really made me think, you know, I really wish Galadriel did say Ring Frenzy in the movies. That would have been really, really epic.
Yeah, right when her hair gets all crazy.
Yeah, she should have yelled Ring Frenzy and then started counting down from 10. Because that would have, like, really raised the tension in that scene, I think, if she was counting down from 10.
Oh, boy. Well, we're not really here to talk about pinball, even though that is surprisingly video game adjacent.
Yeah, you know, I specifically went out of my way when I was in Las Vegas to try and do some video game adjacent things so that I would have some stuff to talk about. That's probably the most video gamey
Did you do, like,
thing.
video poker or something too, then?
No, I played a lot of slots, though, man. I played a lot of slots. And I actually came out positive. Yay me.
Nice.
But I did go bowling, too. I bowled a 150, which is
That's pretty good.
not bad for considering I hadn't bowled in, like, probably, like, half a decade.
Yep. I know that feeling.
Yeah, I was impressed with myself. Very proud.
Well, congratulations on coming out ahead. That's always the dream when you go gambling.
I almost didn't. I literally almost didn't. I was so on the last day, like, I had a late flight. Like, I think I was heading out around 6:37 was my flight back, and I was, like, spending some, like, last minute time with my sister and her fiance, and we were just at Fremont Street. I don't know if you know what Fremont Street is, but it's like
No, I've never been out there.
It's like downtown Las Vegas, but not like the Strip.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a less touristy place, but it's got this, like, killer, like, overhang. Like, it's kind of like an arcade, not like arcade in terms of like a video game arcade, but arcade is like a mall style thing.
Yeah.
Where it's, like, covered on the street, but, like, the covering is like a digital display that goes on for, like, half a mile. And, like, it's playing all sorts of crazy, you know, Las Vegas style effects. It's very, very showy, very glitzy. But, like, my sister had to go use the bathroom. I'm like, all right, let's just duck into this casino, I guess, and you can find the bathroom. And while she was using the bathroom, I was just kind of standing around, and I saw the Willy Wonka slot machine. And, oh my god, I was like, that was the first machine I played the last time I went to Las Vegas, and I immediately, like, won money on that machine. So I was like, okay, well, she's using the bathroom, I'm just going to walk over there, I'll put a 20 in and maybe play a few quick reels. And I hit the button, and it immediately starts playing a bunch of music, and, you know, the Oompa Loompas are, like, dancing on the screen, and it shoots out $70. One spin. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm cashing out. I don't want to risk this anymore. So I like print out my voucher and I get my credits back, and they hand me $80. I'm like,
Well,
hooray!
nice. Um,
If only it was always that easy, you know.
God, if only. Uh, Video games, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Part-Time Gamers
Oh, here,
podcast.
yes, video games. Hello,
I'm Neil,
I'm Matt.
and sorry it took me so long to say video games, hello. I know normally we try to
I
put
was
that in a little quicker, but
I was
it's all good.
yapping, man. I was yapping.
So it's good. Yap, yap away.
Okay.
That's what we do. That's what we're doing here is yapping.
Well, to segue once again. So I was doing the slot machine thing, and I got home. I was like, man, I kind of miss slot machines, and that's probably because I won. Like,
Hmm.
if I hadn't won, I'd probably be a lot less inclined to be interested in slot machines. But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get one of those rinky dink apps on my phone that you just play for fun. And so I
Sure.
was sitting on the toilet, and I realized there's one for Konami, and it's called My Slots Konami or something. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I actually saw the Konami building in Las Vegas. They actually have a humongous factory out there because they manage a lot of slot machines. That's kind of like one of their
Yeah, that
main
makes
branches of their
sense.
business. Um, but I downloaded this app and I was like, okay, well, what slot machines are Konami slot machines? And not a lot of the ones that I played were Konami slots when I was in Las Vegas. But I noticed because of the holiday at the time, because it was nearly Halloween, they had a Silent Hill slot machine on the app. And I was like, this is the Konami I know. Because they're taking these beloved franchises, especially one that has recently come back into popularity, and they're using it as a slot machine. And so I looked it up, and yeah, this is actually just like a little emulation of an actual slot machine they have. And I'm like, what casino has the Silent Hill slot machine? But yeah, it's a thing. I played it. It doesn't have anything to do with anything. It just kind of uses some of the graphics. And if you get a big win, it plays like the Silent Hill, like one of the credit songs, which is really weird and doesn't seem like it fits the environment of a slot machine. But you know what?
No, the
Whatever.
credit song for those games is always like pretty slow and moody.
It's really, yeah, it's really moody. It's lots of like acoustic guitar, and you're just like listening to the song, and it's like playing like a bunch of jingling coin sounds. You're like, neat. This is the Silent Hill experience I am here to have.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
Okay.
but anyway, any video games, right?
Video games,
Actual
video
video
games.
games.
Yeah. I'm just gonna jump into some stuff I've been playing. And by
Okay.
been playing, I'm gonna say I gotta get this one out of the way first because I actually played this in like August and we just have been too busy fucking, talking about other shit and having the world happen and Halloween happen and
I don't
I just
remember what happened in August, Neil. I'm gonna be honest.
I might have played it in September. Point is, Sonoby. This game came out in 2023. Uh I am shocked by how much I liked this game. It is a 2D platformer action game, kind of fully based around having a like hook shot grappling hook type of move. Uh,
Momentum.
yeah, it's extremely momentum based, and it's really fun. They do a really good job mechanically of keeping it interesting and giving you a lot of different stuff to do with your grappling hook. But the thing that really shocked me about the game was actually it takes its story weirdly serious, despite how, uh, I guess, goofy it tries to come off in certain parts and in certain ways. It is telling a story about revenge, and tragedy in general in a kind of cyberpunk world where there's a lot of shit going down. They build a world that they don't fully explore with some kind of royal kingdom and a super force that's like, yo, if you try to copy people's identities, bad shit happens. It's wild. It goes places, but it actually pulls it off way better than I expected to. Um, Especially given some of the early stuff that feels very. You're you're playing this with like weird cartoony music. You have some writing that is maybe not the most it never does the like Joss Whedon, oh, they fly now type of writing. It's not that kind of weird writing, but it does a little bit of like, this sounds like it's trying to be kind of comedy anime style writing in a very not comedy game.
Hmm.
Um, but I truly did enjoy that game quite a bit, and it's very good. But I just wanted to throw that out there super quick because, hey, I played it months ago and just never got around to saying, hey, I played this on the podcast.
You have VODs of it, right?
Yeah, I played it on stream. It's all up on YouTube now, cut up into little pieces.
So there you go. If you want to see Neil play it and you want a little time capsule, and if you want to know the exact time that he streamed it, and therefore when he played it, you can check out the VODs.
It was probably Mondays at 6 p.m.
Oh, yes, but we were confused over the month, Neil.
Yes,
Anyway.
yes, I know, I'm teasing.
For me, I guess we're passing the ball to me. There was another Next Fest. I feel like they have a Next Fest every 2 months now.
It does feel that way, doesn't it?
It really does. And I was like, well, I better play like at least one demo. So I picked one up, and it was a game called Ballionaire, which is a pachinko-style game where you kind of draft the different objects that you're placing inside of the machine, and they all have different effects. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of a roguelite in the sense that it's different every time you play. It's almost like a deck builder, but you draft everything. Like, you don't get to decide what you're gonna start out with.
Mm-hmm.
So, great time killing game. Obviously, when there's physics involved and randomness involved, you're not really guaranteed to win ever, but it's still fun to watch everything go all crazy. Again, I think that I was having a withdrawal from my slot machine obsession, and I was like, I just want to watch things go and be fun, and so that was a fun little demo. Didn't really play anything else from Next Fest. Did you touch anything from Next Fest?
I did not. I was too busy playing.
Neil, you always have one leg 1 year ago and another leg tentatively in the present.
Hey,
You're never looking forward.
I was very
Never
in the
looking
present.
forward.
I've been very in the present lately.
Is that why we're talking about Sona B like several months later?
No. That's why we're talking about UFO 50. I didn't play Next Fest games because I was playing like 20 UFO 50 games.
Okay, well, of the ones that you played, what were you enjoying?
So you've talked quite a bit about UFO 50. My feelings are a little bit less positive than you. Not because I think that you said anything. How dare you? Okay.
How dare you?
Not because I think you're wrong about anything you said.
He hates it, guys. He hates UFO 50. Get him. Get him.
Look, when you said that you are able to approach every game on kind of its own terms, I'm finding that a little bit harder. That's what I'm saying.
That's fair. A lot of people don't like Barbuda.
Yeah, that one especially is pretty rough, but I totally think they do succeed in making games that do feel very old in that way.
They feel so old. No.
Like this is like very cool as a package, and playing through the games from like 1, 2, 3 in their kind of fake chronological order. It is cool to be able to be like, oh yes, it does feel like you can see some through lines. You can feel like they did improve in what they are making. Mm-hmm. The part that makes some of those early ones rough for me is, we learned a lot of those lessons in real life 25 years ago, 30 years ago, and I have trouble going back to some older games, real older games, even when they're good. So these pretend old games, I find myself butting up against them a little bit more. That said, I have really enjoyed a few games from it. The first one that I did the like cherry cartridge thing to, where you like do everything.
The Super Clear.
Yeah, I did Super Clear one game, and that was Chameleon, the kind of like puzzle game where you have to change your colors according to the
Yeah, yeah,
ground
yeah.
you're running around on in order
Metal Gear
to.
Solid 4, basically.
Yeah, yeah. I had a lot of fun with that one. It's also relatively short. There's only like 15 levels or something. But I really liked that one a lot. And then a couple of the other games I've cleared include Golfaria. I think that one's really good.
Really? You're
Yeah.
picking some weird ones for like the ones that you're clearing.
You didn't like Golfaria?
Well, I could say Golfaria, first of all.
Okay, sure.
Maybe that's a bit posh of me. But I think my issue with Golfaria was that I definitely wanted to go to the places that I probably wasn't supposed to be going. And that's
Mm.
normally a you problem.
Mm-hmm.
But like later on, I encountered one of the NPCs is like, the power-ups are in the corners of the map. I'm like, okay, cool. And then I went to the wrong corner, and I'm like, well, that was a big waste of time. Now I'm out of stroke, so guess I'm
Yeah.
starting over. So yeah, I mean, it was all right. I didn't have a problem with Golfaria, but it's certainly not one of my favorites.
Yeah, that one was one of those ones where you really the way it's kind of structured, you're playing a little bit of an isometric golf game and you have a certain number of strokes you can make before it kind of says, "Oh, you're dead. Try
It's a
again."
golf adventure game where you play as the ball.
Mhm. Um and I will say like at the start I was kind of with you. I was like, "I don't know about this," but pretty early on I managed to find a couple of the like get more strokes upgrade things.
Yeah, yeah,
Um
yeah.
and once you get to a certain point, the strokes kind of just aren't something you have to think about. And I do think it maybe took a little bit longer to get there than I would have liked, but
Well,
once I
okay.
kind of found the flow of the game, it
Let's
was
talk
easy
about
to
that
just
though.
play.
Because I feel like that's also a flaw, because you say
It
at a
is.
certain point you don't worry about the strokes, but like that's the main gameplay mechanic.
I mean, the,
Like,
the main
if you're not
gameplay
worrying
mechanic
about
to me
that,
was the way navigation works, which is fun.
I guess, but like the penalty comes when you're not doing it correctly and you waste a bunch of strokes.
Hmm.
So, I don't know. I think
Yeah,
like I when I got certain power-ups, I was enjoying it more because I felt like I had more control. But when you're dealing with an isometric 2D game and you're dealing with like the physics of going up and downhill, sometimes it's kind of hard to gauge stuff.
totally.
And again, like I hate to come at it from a more negative standpoint, but I'm only doing it because Neil seems like he had a better time than I did. Uh, but yeah, no, I mean, again, I like all the games in here. It's just I'm surprised that that's the one that, or at least one of the ones that gripped you.
Yeah. Like I beat that one. I'm not gonna go through and cherry it. I don't have that kind of desire.
Hmm.
But it did at least engage enough of the kind of adventure gamey, borderline Metroid-ish uh type of play that does just kind of work for me. So, you know. But yeah, UFO 50 is really interesting. I plan to play a lot more of the games. I haven't really engaged with the like terminal stuff that I know is in there, and I don't know if the more than what the game inside the games are, the actual UFO 50 game itself. I don't know if I'm actually have that much desire to engage with the kind of meta of it all, but I don't know. We'll see.
There's some fun stuff in there, and engaging with that meta aspect, it kind of gives you. I mean, it won't. I'm not gonna say it's gonna give you more games because it's UFO 50. There's
Hmm.
50 games, but you do get to see some like kind of prototype stuff that's pretty interesting. Um, and again, there is lore there. The whole point of the game is to be a collection of games from this one imagined developer, UFO
Yeah,
Soft.
yeah,
So you can find out more about that if you care to. But the terminal is useful for other things too. I don't know if you realize, but like it's basically a console. So if you know certain commands, you can pull up certain info or you can launch games from it if you want.
I really haven't engaged with that. The thing that actually surprised me, I know there's like codes or something you can get in games. I don't know if I just missed it, but I felt like if I cherried a game, I would get something, and I didn't find anything like that.
Um, so not to spoil anything, but there is a code during the intro, where it does like the pilot and the
Mm-hmm.
pilot's sister. If you slow it down, there's something engraved on the tree, and that's the first one I found. And after that,
Okay.
I kind of went on a little rabbit hole journey.
Okay, so
Um,
these aren't things you're like earning. These are things you're finding.
yeah, and the other thing
Okay.
is if the terminal's displaying different things at different times. So if you check it during certain events in games, or like if you think something interesting has happened, sometimes if you go into the terminal, it'll have like a message for you. So,
Hmm.
I kind of had a period where I was checking the terminal basically constantly to see if I'm missing something. But yeah, I mean,
Interesting.
you don't have to engage with that stuff at all. Like it's completely optional, and enjoy the game outside of all of that. But there is another layer there.
Yeah,
We talked
yeah,
about Animal Well and how there's layers. Well, there's a layer in UFO 50.
yeah. And I'm curious, have you played all 50 games at this point?
No,
Okay.
no, I haven't.
I remembered you talking about Party House and stuff, but I wasn't sure. I think
Yes,
I'm still
Party
like a
House.
row and a half away from that or something.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of like I started and I did the first two rows in order. I didn't complete everything, but I played them in
Mm-hmm.
order. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna play whatever. And so I just kind of like poked around and decided.
I see.
Uh, but yeah, I had to take a break from UFO 50 because there was some other stuff going on, Neil.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, one of them was the Monster Hunter Wilds beta,
yeah.
which I
Uh,
knew you were on the fence on about playing it, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna do it.
I
And then you're
was.
like, you know what? I'm gonna do it.
So part of what happened for me on that one is I was on the fence about playing it because I know I'm gonna play that game either way. You know, it's not
Yeah.
something I need to engage with, but uh, a few things that week were less enjoyable than one would have preferred, to put it lightly. Uh, but because of that, I knew that I wasn't going to spend my weekend doing some bonus streams as I had intended. So I said, I want to do something with my weekend, so I did download it and engage with the demo a little bit just to be able to say like, okay, here's a new thing to kind of distract myself from a lot of the real world things happening. Uh, and it worked. It did
It
succeed
worked
in
for
doing that.
it worked for the duration
Yeah.
of the demo playtest.
Yeah, the like 2 days that I spent with it, I guess. Which honestly I probably only spent 5 or 6 hours maybe.
Yeah,
Uh
yeah.
maybe less. And at least like a half hour of that was just character builder, which the character builder, very detailed. And
A lot more robust.
they have some way better curly hair options than you see in a lot of games. I was pleasantly surprised.
As someone who has curly hair.
As someone who has curly hair, yes. They had more than
Yeah.
just an afro.
Yeah, no, there was certainly a lot more going on there. But I personally thought it to be a distraction from actually playing the game because it was a limited thing.
Hmm.
So I just kind of like blazed right through that. So I didn't actually notice how more detailed that character creator is. But that's nice. I'm glad to
Yeah,
hear that.
yeah.
I have things to say about how they're changing weapons.
All right, let me hear a little bit of your opinions about it, because like the big overarching thing, all the weapons got some amount of changes. Some of
Yes, they
them
did.
way more than others.
Yes.
But the big thing in this game is the focus mode, which can unlock certain attacks for certain weapons. It can highlight wound points. The whole wound system I actually think is very cool, but we'll get into that in a moment.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but like from a just weapons perspective, what kind of changes were you kind of not as happy about?
Well, okay. So I'm a hammer player first and foremost. And so I immediately reach for that hammer. And I'm really disappointed that they changed it from having the two different charge states. So
Mm.
in Rise and I believe in World, it's been a while since I played World. You switch between kind of like a red stance and a blue stance, and they kind of have different move sets when you're charging. And in Wilds, there is no, well, there is a second stance, but you have to go through all the charging of the first stance to access the second wild quote unquote stance. And the wild stance is basically you swing your hammer around like you're fucking Thor and you're about to launch yourself into space.
It is a very funny animation.
It's such a, it's, you say funny, I say stupid. I don't like it. I mean, there's certainly some meme potential there, and I think they knew that. I think that they were like, wouldn't it be funny if they spin the hammer and someone gave them the thumbs up and they were like, all right, we're doing it then. I think it's a soft nerf. I feel like the damage potential is cut off because of the extended charge that you have to do. And what was basically this, if the neutral blue stance full charge, which would take about the same time that it would fully charge your hammer in Wilds to the first stance. This is really hard to explain.
Sure.
Let's just say that like it takes longer to do a move that you had access to much quicker in earlier games. And that move is kind of like the crux of a lot of the damage, especially when you are familiar with where the monster is going to be. Now you have to spend extra time charging, and that extra time charging can like really make it difficult to figure out where that monster is going to be. And also you move a lot slower when you're doing the second level stance, I guess.
That
it's not
part
easy to walk around.
Yeah.
It's not easy to walk around when you're swinging your hammer around like an insane person. So yeah, I don't necessarily like the changes with hammer. Other than that, I think it's pretty much the same weapon. But the charge is like so central to hammers, man. And then I did briefly play with katana, and oh my god, they're just like riding the katana's dick. I'm sorry, like I hate to be so crass about it.
Longsword always seems like it gets a little bit of preferential treatment.
Longsword has always been like this ultra weeby edgelord weapon, and it's like the preferred weapon of beginners for good reason. Like it's an easy weapon, and oh my god, they gave it like 10 new different things you can do. And like they made the full charge devil slice into like the whole different mode where you're like double hitting, and it's just like why encourage people on this again? I'm tired of all the people playing longsword, man. Like get them on the hunting horn. I didn't play a hunting horn, so I can't tell you how it's been changed. But yeah, the weapons have been changed.
I looked at hunting horn and said no, because holy shit. Hunting horn is weird because it made those like giant changes to simplify in Rise. This one looks like they went back to World and then added about 2 or 3 layers of complexity.
Okay, well, I think I might have mentioned on the podcast before, but Capcom has 2 separate teams for Monster Hunter. They kind of like an A team and a B team. The team that's working on Wilds did World, and that's you can see that DNA there. And you can also, as someone who tried to wire bug recover like 100 different times during this playtest, clearly they decided that was not a thing they wanted. And so yeah, there's going to be some pretty stark differences between Rise and Wilds. But yeah, I think there. You know what? I also did bowgun. I did a little bit of light bowgun because you can switch your weapon out in the field. You can have a secondary weapon.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I guess I'll just use this to try out something else. And yeah, I did a little bit of bowgun, and they simplified that. I think that they really wanted to make it feel more like a shooting game when you're using that. The dodge is so much better than in World and in Rise. Like, the dodging with bowgun felt so stinted, and now you can kind of slide around a lot more and just be a little more dynamic.
So I didn't spend a lot of time with bowgun, but I was finding the slidey dodging stuff to be way harder than I remember it being in Rise.
Really?
In Rise, it felt like really natural for me to do these like quick dodges and then shoot.
Oh, Rise. I was thinking World.
No. I didn't really play light bowgun in World at all. But in Rise, I remember feeling it like pretty natural, and that game's a lot more actiony. So at a
Well,
certain
not
point,
just actiony. It's just much more mobile. Like you're running
yeah,
up walls and
totally.
like flying through the air.
So I was feeling like the light bow gun, for some reason, maybe I was just like doing something wrong, but I was having a lot of trouble getting the kind of like step dash stuff to work when I was doing light bow gun in Wild demo, and I don't know why.
Hmm. Well,
Um,
can I recommend longsword if you're having trouble?
I tried it a little bit, and I have a different feeling about longsword than you. Um, Not that, oh my god, it got preferential treatment again, because it did. But I liked that it felt like they are encouraging uh, use of the bar in a way that they maybe didn't in the other ones, where like you kind of get to red state or whatever, and then you're good. Just keep that as
Well,
long as you can, and you can forever if you really want to.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that that was a legitimate strategy, like in older games where you don't actually want to max out your bar because that's when it starts draining faster. So
Hmm.
you would stay in yellow or like dip into red a little bit for a while, but you wouldn't want to activate your the I forget what it's called.
The
Spirit bar.
Hellbreaker or something. Yeah,
You don't want to actually fill it all the way because then that's when it drains faster and then yeah, you can get a lot of damage output like for a little bit, but then you have to recharge your bar all the way again. So,
yeah.
it was actually preferable not to. Um, but yeah, they actually do want you very much to activate it in wilds, but I don't know. I haven't I didn't spend enough time with it to really get a good feel for like what is optimal.
That's
But
fair.
it didn't really I didn't really need to figure out what was optimal because I was just wrecking with
Yeah,
it.
it also just felt really powerful. I messed around with a few of the other weapons. Switch Axe feels mostly the same, with just a couple of like added moves that like there's one big move missing that I felt very weird about, and there was like one added move that I didn't really feel like I enjoyed using that much. So it was kind of felt mostly the same, I guess. But there was something weird. I don't know if they just like forgot to put hit stop on that weapon or something, but it feels like you're just swinging something around and it's not hitting with impact the way that I'm used to.
Just kind of slicing through like butter.
Yeah, and that makes it feel a little weird. Um,
Yeah.
but after the fact, the weapons that I didn't touch, unfortunately, that looked like they had a lot of interesting changes were gun lance and bow. Those two weapons look like they got a lot of really cool, interesting, and especially with bow, wildly different changes to them in ways that I'm going to say from the outside seem really positive, and I want to try those out.
Well, too late now.
I know, I know. But other than that, what I can say about the demo, I really enjoyed the wound system in general.
Hmm.
It's kind of like the tenderizing thing, except not the like you have to do this, and it is just like a step you are tenderizing in Iceborne felt like something you had to do on every single weapon, and
Is
it
that
was
what
the
it's
same
actually
on every
called?
weapon.
Tenderizing?
Yeah, you are tenderizing the pieces. You would clutch claw
I
on and
no,
tenderize them.
I mean I understand the like the effect of it. I didn't know it was actually called tenderizing. I just call it clutch claw.
Fair,
Huh. That's
fair.
that's that's weird.
At any
Okay.
rate, every single weapon had to engage with that, and it felt like just a piece of upkeep that wasn't particularly fun to engage with past the first. I mean, I played a shitload of that game, don't get me wrong, but like that became a thing you were doing on every single monster, every single weapon, and it felt a little samey and kind of detracted for me. The
Yeah.
wound
Yeah.
system is happening with every weapon, but it's happening on the monsters and it's happening while you're doing what you're already doing, and then you get bonuses out of it. And I think that is a lot more fun to engage with, uh, just on a base level. So I was pretty into that.
Yeah, I like it. if only for the idea that you don't have to go around picking up pieces after the monster leaves an area. Like
Mm.
it just gives you it, and you're like, oh, cool, that's great, like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the Slinger Pod's back. That's straight from World. Uh, what else? So they have like the big seamless map. That's the big appeal of Wilds is that like it's a very big continuous map. And from what I understand, the section that you're playing in for the demo is only a small piece, which is,
Yeah.
encouraging. I'd like to have big environments. What I don't like is that the secret, which is a silly name,
Mm-hmm.
like don't get me wrong, the Monster Hunter's had silly names in it before, but the mount system, it kind of just puts you on rails, and there's a lot less exploring. And again, this is kind of like the antithesis of what was going on in Rise, where they really wanted you to explore the map, and there was lots of incentive to just going places that you wouldn't really need to go to otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And in this, it's just like, nah, just ignore it. If you want to pick something up, just hook shot it from your reptile mount thing. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, I get that what's going on here is you're wanting to focus on the strengths of what Monster Hunter is, and that's fighting the big monsters. Uh, but again, this is a problem I had with Rise, where it's called Monster Hunter, right? As someone who's been a veteran of the series, like it was very much about hunting the monster. And when I say hunt, I mean not just fighting it, not just running up and smacking it with your weapon over and over, but like tracking it,
Yeah,
like setting
running
up things in
around
the
the
environment,
environment a little bit and hitting collect on a
finding
couple
it.
of things that say, oh, now we know which one of these question marks on the map is the monster.
Yeah, and when you're grinding out Silver Rathalos like 50 times, like you learn like its behavior, like not just in terms of fighting, but like where it likes to hang out, like where it likes to stand, like the other things it engages with in the map. And like that felt like expertise, That
Mm-hmm.
felt like I mean obviously that's not very applicable to anything else going on in my life, but when I was sitting with a group of two other people playing on PSP, like it was like we kind of shared in this weird culture where like let's go to Area 5, and I was like no, Area 2 is where it flies after, if you down it over here, this is where it likes to go. It's like, oh yeah, and then we go over there and sure enough there it is, and it's like that's cool. And they kind of started moving away from that in World with like the bug thing, I forget what it's called,
Yeah, the
but
little like tracking light
the
guys.
tracking bugs, the helper bugs, whatever they're called.
Yeah.
And yeah, you would do investigation, and that was fine too. You'd find the footprints, you'd find markings, and like it would slowly increase your familiarity with the monster in the game, so that you'd be able to track it easier. And now it's just like, here's the monster on the map, drop a pin on it, and then the mount's gonna take you there. And it's
Yeah.
like that doesn't quite feel the same.
Yeah. I agree with you on that piece. The unfortunate thing for me about that is it makes engaging with a lot of the looking at monsters and picking your quests and stuff, at least in the demo, feel a lot more like the guiding lands from Iceborne, which I definitely got sick of relatively quickly. Like that's where you had to do a lot of your end game grinding
Grinding. Yeah,
in
no. The issue
Iceborne.
I don't find the issue with not going back to the base and like doing your busy work. I think the issue is with the sheer amount of grinding that the guiding lands wanted out of you.
Totally. And unfortunately, the way that these systems played together made it feel more like the guiding lands to me. Not necessarily that it's going to end up that way, but it gave that feel kind of right off the bat. And I agree with you. The auto going to monster stuff. If I was just like, hey, I want to fight like 19 of this monster, that's going to be nice. But it really did disincentivize exploring the map. The only time I really explored the map during this demo was when we were trying to play together and you were having some what was it, shader compiling issues.
Yeah.
And then we had issues actually getting our each other together. Once we got together, the online played great, which I was really happy about. because World, holy shit, was a nightmare for playing together. Um, but that was the only time I really explored the world because I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna waste some time as we try to get together to play this together. I'm not gonna hunt something right now. That was the only time I ran around the map and actually explored it at all. And it doesn't feel great. I feel like, in Rise, I learned the shit out of those maps. I had routes for running around different maps to collect, like, stone when I needed to farm stone. I had routes that I liked to take through the maps to collect the spirit bugs on the way to different monster fights. And a lot of that was learning those maps, learning how to navigate these spaces. And there's no purpose to that in what we played in this demo.
Yeah, yeah.
And that
I'm
does
not
feel
saying
like
that
it's
there
losing
won't be.
something.
I'm not saying there won't be incentive to explore. I'm sure that there's going to be a reason to wander around these big maps.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's one of those things that's not incentivized. And again, it might just be for the demo. Who knows? But I would like to feel more assured that the hunting part will still be a part of this.
Mm-hmm.
And in the demo, it's not there at all.
In the demo, it feels like the hunting might just be relegated to cutscenes.
Okay, one last gripe, so we can move on.
Sure.
I did like the demo. This is not the gripe, but I do also want to say that performance was really bad on my 3070 Ti until I got my driver updated. But the thing was, like Neil said, I had to compile my shaders twice because it recompiled them after the driver update,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a real pain in the butt. My gripe, and the ultimate gripe that I have for Wild is that the default for felines is speaking English. Ew. No, don't have them speak. They're the little cat guys. They meow, and I don't want them talking in any sort of language I understand natively.
I definitely
Stop
changed it to the meows right away.
I did too. I hated that. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's great to get more voice actors work. I believe in that. I agree with that. It should not be the default. Don't make them talk. That's weird.
I will say I have a language gripe also. The demo did not have Monster Hunter language.
Yeah, they do. That's also.
If
That bothered me less.
If there's a Monster Hunter language and the Palicos will speak in Monster Hunter language, I might leave it that way.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I
It's
don't
just
want
when
it speaking English.
I don't want the little cat guy opening its mouth and having words I understand come out.
Yeah.
That's disconcerting to me. I hate that.
All right. Before we move on from games, Halloween happened between our last things. I just need to say the other Halloween game I played this year was the Blair Witch game by Bloober Team. That game sucks.
Yep.
I know we've talked about Bloober Team a few times.
What did you know about that game going in? Like, if you asked me, I would be like, nah, man, that ain't it.
All I knew was it was a Bloober Team game and not one of their best.
Okay.
I did not hear that it was like kind of bad, just not one of their best. But
I feel bad because I'm sure that there's some people who played Silent Hill 2's remake and are like, oh, Bloober Team, wow, they did a really good job, and they like went back and like, okay, what else they do? Oh, Blair Witch, that's a franchise.
yeah,
And it's just like, oh no.
yeah, that game. One, I have no idea. Like, I'm not a Blair Witch person. I don't know if the movies.
You're not a Blair Witch?
I'm not a Blair Witch. I don't know if the movies do any of this, like person in the wood stuff and like not so much supernatural. This game felt like the only thing Blair Witch about it was, hey, we did the little like Blair Witch symbol and it takes place in a forest.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm neither a Blair Witch nor a Blair Warlock, but I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
That actually links that to the movie franchise.
I do want to say though, we've talked about Bloober Team a lot in the past. I've played other games by them that I had fairly decent times with. That like first Layers of Fear game didn't fire on all cylinders, but it had a couple of okay scares in it.
The Layers of Fear was good.
I think they did Observer was like their second game, kind of a more dystopian.
Cyberpunk horror.
Yeah, and that one had some pretty cool stuff in it too. Pretty gross stuff in
Yes.
it. And
Yes.
I've also heard that the medium that they did after Blair Witch is maybe one of the worst games ever made, and I've not played that one.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
which is why when we talked about Silent Hill stuff leading into the Silent Hill 2 remake, a lot of people out there were like, we're worried about this because Bloober Team is behind it. It's been great to hear that they apparently really succeeded at this Silent Hill remake. But holy crap, this Blair Witch game was not great. And I just wanted to segue into the news a little bit because there was a pretty funny, I don't remember who at Bloober Team, it was like either creative director or like studio director or something, had some quote that more or less was him saying, yeah, we're turning over a new leaf and we're not going to make shitty games anymore. Which is very funny. Like, at least they're kind of self-aware that, yes, they did not fire on every cylinder sometimes.
Yeah.
But having
Well,
them come
okay.
out and say that kind of stuff is one of the reasons I don't feel so bad saying, like, Blair Witch sucked. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
because, like, don't get me wrong, I was streaming it. There was one section of that game I actually think was relatively good in just structure and the way it made it so that, like, there was some uh, uh, tension built up and a couple of moments where I kind of went like, oh god. But that was one section of a like 5 hour game, and that section was 40 minutes, you know? Like,
Yeah.
it didn't fire on the cylinders it needed to, unfortunately.
Yeah, and then the analogy of an engine, just to be clear, the cylinders firing were not all of them.
No, not even close. But that was the end of my Halloween stuff. I just wanted to make sure we don't miss. I don't want to talk about Halloween in the middle of December, you know?
We can do whatever we want. It's our podcast. Um,
Fair.
I know you were talking about moving on from video games. So I'll probably talk about the Hades 2 Olympic update next time. Assuming we have news to talk about.
Only a teeny bit. There was. Oh gosh, actually, now I'm forgetting what we talked about last time and what we didn't.
Oh, okay. Well,
Shit.
I'll tell you if it
What
sounds
did
familiar.
did we already do the Concord shit? Like that
Yeah,
studio fully closing now?
no, that's long gone,
Okay.
and we have talked about that.
Okay.
Yes. Did you watch Arcane season 2?
I have watched the first 3 episodes of it. Yes.
Oh, okay, I haven't. I haven't
Okay.
watched Arcane season 1, so
I
I was just saying something that felt like the right thing to ask.
I do really like Arcane season 1. These first few episodes, totally fine. I don't think they're as exciting as that first season, but that first season was also a big surprise. So
Yeah.
they have a little bit
Now
more
you
to
have
live up to this
expectations.
time. Yeah, yeah. But it's not like bad or anything like that. I don't want people thinking like, oh my god, they're failing. It's more like if Arcane is a 9, this is an 8 right now, maybe a 7 at worst.
Oh, okay. All right.
But these first 3 episodes, a perfectly decent, hey, let's get back into this. Let's set up a few things, figure out where the story is going. And I'm still shocked to say like that first Arcane season was good enough that I reinstalled League of Legends for a while. Not that I was playing the like normal game, but like it was good enough that I reinstalled that shit. So, you know.
I didn't do that, but then again, I didn't watch Arcane. I did play two HKO or whatever the fuck it's called. What's it called?
2XKO.
2XKO. I
Yeah.
don't know where I got H from. And I still have the stupid Vanguard thing on my computer because of it. And every time I boot it up, I'm like, I gotta fucking shut that off because I'm not playing any Riot games right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
They
oh,
they
you know
did have a piece of news about 2XKO actually.
yeah, go ahead.
Just today, they finally unveiled Jinx again. They kind of shown her in some of the earlier promotional like a year and a half ago, but hadn't really shown her in quite a while, and she was not playable in the uh, Alpha Lab from a few months ago. But
Yeah.
they've shown her again. They're like, hey, look, she's back. She looks way better now, as like just her effects and everything have been cleaned up a lot. And she is going to be playable in the next one of these Alpha Labs that they do, which they are saying is going to be spring next year.
No boy. That's probably when I'm gonna play a fighting game again then. Um, what else? Oh, did you hear since we're still talking about Halloween stuff.
hmm
Um, did you hear the interesting thing about Silent Hill 2's sampling?
No.
Oh my god. Okay. So allegedly Silent Hill 2 remake samples Piglet's Big Game for GameCube. And not in a way that's like kind of like an Easter egg, because you'd be like, "Oh, is it like a weird sound effect or something from Piglet's Big Game?" No, it's like a song, like an actual song. And I'm like, "Okay, well what song is playing in Silent Hill 2 that like was ripped from Piglet's Big Game?" And like I went down the rabbit hole of listening to the Piglet's Big Game soundtrack.
Oh God.
And there's some creepy ass songs on there, man. And people in the comments were like, "Yeah, this game like gave me nightmares." And I'm like, "What the fuck is this game?"
I don't think I even
And
heard of this
yeah,
game.
it's Piglet's Big Game. You don't remember Piglet's Big Movie?
No.
Well, there's a game for it, and
Okay.
this was it. And it was apparently a pants-crappingly scary movie for kids, or a
Oh my
scary
God.
game for kids. And yeah, there's some creepy audio tracks on that. Almost like I can't believe there hasn't been like more creepy pasta about Piglet's Big Game. Like it's like rife of that. Like the
Oh
energy
my
is like
God.
so much like that's got to be a thing. But yeah, so it has not been confirmed formally, I believe, but like listening to the track from Silent Hill 2 and then listening to the Piglet's Big Game track, yeah, it's kind of the same song. Uh, I don't recommend going to listen to it because unless you don't mind being unnerved. But like trying to find the context in which it's played for the game, yeah, like there's like a boss fight and it's creepy as hell. And if I was a kid and I got that and I was like, oh look, it's a little Winnie the Pooh game. I like Winnie the Pooh. I've played Kingdom Hearts. This is gonna be a nice little family friendly, fun adventure. And then that song plays. That's I don't know. That's cursed. I want
Oh
Bloober
my
Team to
God.
do a remake of Piglet's Big Game.
That's super funny.
And I want it to be good because they're not making crappy games anymore.
Well,
That's like all the news I got.
that's fine.
No
The
news is good
news that has
news.
been weighing on my head is not video game related, so,
I don't give a crap about anything that's not video game related,
uh-huh.
Neil. Not since not since last month.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
Now I only care about video games.
The only other piece of news that I can really think of is apparently there were some firings and stuff, I believe, at GameSpot.
Why you gotta do this at the end of every podcast?
Because it
Yeah,
keeps happening. It keeps
let's just
happening.
end on the dourest, saddest note. I'm literally trying to dodge you talking about current events, and you're
Okay.
like, "Oh, but I did. These people were getting fired, though." I was like, "God damn it, Neil!"
Okay.
Like, don't get me wrong. It is important to talk about that stuff, but let's not send people off on that.
I won't. I won't. I'll send
Well, now you
people
got to come
off.
up with something.
Okay. Um
I want good news. It better be happy and positive.
Nintendo was that today? Did I miss that today? Nintendo doing some kind of partner showcase or Super Mario showcase or something?
It was for the theme parks.
Oh, it was for the theme parks? Shit.
Yeah.
That's why I missed it. Um, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
no, it's about the Donkey Kong edition, I guess, to both the American
Did we ever
and
talk about Nintendo finally maybe actually suing the Pal World people about Pokemon?
we did talk about that
Fuck.
already.
Okay. I don't know, man. It's news.
Yeah,
Here,
I should have
here's
just
a piece of news. Uh,
okay.
the Elden Ring DLC is way better than Elden Ring.
Oh, that's not
It's not
news.
news.
That's an opinion piece.
I'll talk about it a lot more in a future podcast when I'm done with it. But there you go. There's a piece of news that is good.
Okay, is that good or
I don't know.
I don't know
Do you
anymore,
want
Neil.
Zenless Zone Zero news? Like they keep putting
Yeah,
shit out. I'm still playing it.
tell me about that. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Okay. They're at like 1.3. They've added a bunch of new characters. They keep adding more chapters and
Yeah, but
modes.
why would I return as someone who played and left?
Because I think it's fun. I think in general it's a pretty fun game, and they have designs for character. The designs
All
in
right,
the
that's it. Thanks, guys. Thanks for
designs for the
listening. That's what
characters
we're
in
ending
that
on.
game,
You found it, Neil. You found the right way to end the podcast.
I think are generally better
Thank
than the
you.
designs in other Hoyoverse games.
Well, they're more sexy.
Yeah,
Let's
they're
just be
better.
clear here. Um, and that's because this is that Zenless Zone Zero is developed at a different place where they're not subjected. If you ever looked at Zenless Zone Zero and looked at Genshin Impact, you're like, why is this game so much more promiscuous and sexy? And it's because it's developed outside of the boundaries of Chinese law.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for the nightmare of an ending we had today.
That's you can thank one person for that.
Video games, goodbye.
Don't you fucking video games goodbye me.
Audio Games is hosted and produced by Matthew Lane and Neil Jimenez. Our theme music is Recharging by Gooset. If you'd like to reach out to us, please email us at audiogamespodcast@gmail.com.
You can't just video games goodbye me and then be like, oh, everything's over. This is where he's gonna edit it out and it's gonna make it seem like that's literally the ending.
No, it's fine.
Ugh.
But hey, a little bit of after chat for a moment here. I've been watching a shitload of anime. In October, watch like a horror anime. I guess horror anime, just to try to be in season, called like Mariko-chan or something. It's just a girl who sees ghosts. Uh
And she's unbothered by it for the most
oh no,
part.
she's wildly bothered by it. It's kind of fun.
But she has to act like she's not bothered.
Correct.
by it.
Oh, you've seen this one?
I've seen I've osmosed some of it.
Okay. I enjoyed it. It was pretty fun. There you go.
That would have been a way better ending.
Well,
But I
this is
guess that's
going
not
after
video
the
games.
this is the ending after the song. So there you go.
Ending after the ending. Anime goodbye, everybody.
Don't you anime goodbye me.